Welcome to our cross-border careers talk on working with a multinational production company. My name is Rebecca Del Tufo. My pronouns are she, her, and for anyone who needs a visual description, I'm a white middle-aged woman with short brown pink hair and a floral top. My co-director Elizabeth McIntyre is also here today. And thank you to Sarah Patt Associates for supporting this strand of talks. Now I'm delighted to welcome Ewan Wallace, executive producer and currently project director at Fremantle, and also one of our mentors, to give this talk today. Ewan, welcome, thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. And for those who need a description of me, I'm a middle-aged white man with my pronouns are he, him, and I've got grey hair and I've got a white background behind me, and I've had grey hair ever since I was 15. So it's not that I'm old and grey, it's just that I've always been grey-haired. So to start off with, I thought I'd give you a bit of background about myself. I started life kind of working at the BBC, which is the British Broadcasting Corporation in London. And ever since childhood, I've always wanted to work in television. And so I got my first job at the BBC at the age of 20. So I worked my way up, starting in the office and then working on every different job I could, from researcher to assistant producer to producer. And then eventually I actually became one of the heads of department and an executive producer in their team, working on the world's longest children's show called Blue Peter. And I love nothing more than having a script in my hand and running live TV, supporting a big team and producing some really good television that everyone really loves. So since leaving the BBC, I went on to work and train over 3 years, lots of different people in the UK to work in the industry, in the media industries. And so I've gone on to work for the likes of Channel 4, which is like another UK-based channel, Netflix, ITV Studio, Studio Lambert, Lad Bible, and the BBC, just to mention a few places. So I really do love sharing my knowledge and training future generations into the business that I love. In January 2023, I started a company called Fremantle. Now, Fremantle is a global TV production company that works over 27 territories around the world, from Australia to Indonesia, India, and most European countries, together with the USA and Mexico. So it's quite a wide-ranging company, truly global. And Fremantle has been creating and distributing and producing content for over 100 years. It's part of a group called the RTL Group, which is a leader across broadcaster content and digital TV production. And it's in turn, the RTL Group is owned by a company called Bertelsmann. And Bertelsmann comprises of the world's largest book publisher, Penguin Random House. If you're into books, they're in that company, and also leading music company, BMG. So it's really interesting that to be part of such a big company. And my role in Fremantle is to help improve and bring in and develop new pipelines of talent for all their global companies around the world, and to coordinate it all. So it's a really lovely job. It's great to meet talented individuals in whichever country they're in. And it's great that I've now actually, through Fremantle, become a mentor for ScreenCraft Works. And it's great that my mentee, Natasha, is on the call today. So thanks, Natasha, for the support. And it's great to bring people into the industry that I love. Just to make it clear, I am speaking today from my experience in the industry, and I'm not a Fremantle spokesperson because I've only been with for a few months and I'm learning a lot about them too. We thought it'd be interesting to talk today about working multinationally, and also some tips on how to secure a job. Because actually, and I've contacted and spoken to lots of my colleagues around the world within Fremantle, just to find out about how to secure those jobs and what do CVs and resumes mean in different countries, and also what it could lead to, like what's the benefit of social media in a really digitally connected world. I've always worked in live TV or factual entertainment or entertainment TV, so my specialism is not scripted or drama production, but I do think that some of the areas that I talk about today do work across the board. So I do hope that, and since I've been mentoring, worked with lots of different people over the years, particularly over the last 3 years, I've spotted actually the world of digital media has really transformed. So it's not just broadcasters, it's not just secrets, it could be branded content where you're supporting a big brand in making digital content. It could be 101 different things of what you could actually achieve with all your creativity. Today's session, I always say, could just be titled, Do Your Research. Just because I've never worked globally before in my life, And I've worked for the BBC, which is obviously a global company, but I never had the opportunity. I worked in different countries for the BBC, but never actually worked globally in that country. And so since joining Fremantle, I have seen how job roles and titles do vary between countries and how there are different approaches to CVs and job hunting. And so this is all about kind of doing research and finding out about those opportunities. And I also say it's not just all about the job title, but it's also about what you do. And that is a really critical thing, just because if you're working or researching different roles and different opportunities, then there are very many different job titles. And the word producer could be 101 different things. And it's really important that you find out what do they actually mean about what you actually do as a producer. Are you on location? Are you just in the office? Where are you actually doing your role? What are your day-to-day tasks? Because lots of different activities have very many different names. So these are just some of the job titles that I've come across. So line producer, production manager, supervisor. In many countries around the world, supervisors or coordinators are just called supervisors and coordinators. You don't really know exactly what they do until you really find out. Assistant, secretary, runner. Runner seems pretty universal, but a lot of runners are assistants in many different countries. The word producer, supervisor again. So in an editorial line, these are kind of what supervisor could be called. Director, researcher, journalist. So in many countries that I found out that journalists are researchers. And so if you worked in particularly in European countries, they'd call you journalist if you were a researcher on the team. Script, casting, there could be cutters, editors. So cutter is an editor and vice versa. But an editor could also be an executive producer. A supervisor, and again, the word supervisor has come up quite a few times. Every column has a supervisor. Also, post assistants, that's in post-production, or an edit versus post versus cut. What do you actually call it? Do you call it an edit? Do you call it post-production, or do you just call it a cut room? Lots of different countries call it in many different things. A story producer, an edit producer, so many job titles. And also what's even more interesting is there's so many different types of contract. So it's always good to do your research about these, because permanent contracts are quite hard to come by, but they do exist. But permanent means you're fully employed by that company and you only work with them. Fixed term means you're there just for a fixed term. So it could be a year, it could be 6 months, it could be 3 weeks, it could be 2 weeks. It does always vary. Project-based contracts are often depending on the program that you work on. So you could be on, let's say, if you were working at Fremantle, Got Talent, that could be a contract for 10 months, but then you then find work for another 2 months to make up your year's work. Freelance is purely freelance, could just be a matter of days you're working with a company, or it could be that you're working with a company that you get to work for 2 weeks, then that's it. And as a freelancer in the UK, where I'm based, you do end up having to pay your own tax, you have to insure yourself, you have to provide all your services. So there's different things you have to really work on. And don't assume that if you're coming from a different country and you're coming to work at the UK, you're coming to work in Europe, or you're going to work in Asia, Australia, America. Always check out the different types of contracts that they offer, particularly if you're not native to that country. Also, different benefits. Now, benefits in Australia are called fringes, as in fringe benefit. So in the UK, my fringe is there on my head. It's not in a contract. So again, it's really good to ask questions about what is a fringe, particularly, or they could say your benefits. Always ask about taxes and what you have to pay, because you don't want to get into trouble with the government in that country for taxes. And also visa requirements. So always check your visa requirements and right to work, because sometimes that is where some people get into trouble, and you don't want to get into trouble when you're working for a multinational company, because they will know what they're talking about. So don't say, yes, I've got a visa. If you do have a visa, that's something you can really talk about in your interview or job advert, or looking in the job advert. And so I would always say, always speak to an expert or local in the country you might be applying for, just because you never know kind of what the different things might be in those different countries. So how long do you think the average employer spends looking at a CV sent into them? The average CV then people spend is about 10 seconds. So in 10 seconds, you've got to get across every bit of experience, all your ambitions. You've got to make an impact, because that person probably has 10 seconds, because they may be looking through so many different CVs And also, and scarily enough, with AI and lots of other things going on with computers, sometimes a computer will just go through your CV before you even get to see it. And so the hiring manager may not ever see your CV if it doesn't get through the computer system. So with CVs and resumes, and they're called resumes in the States because I've asked my colleagues out in LA, what's the ideal length of a CV? So I would say to everyone, do always just think less is more, and don't over-egg your experience or what you're doing, because actually, if there's too much information, they won't get it through all of it. I would say 2 pages or less. And someone like me, when I went for the job at Fremantle, my CV was 2 pages or less, just because I didn't need to put everything on it. And I really cut down my CV just to make it really clear what was on my CV. The basics of what I think should be on a CV, which kind of really makes a difference, are, and this could be really obvious, contact information. You won't understand, but the number of times there's a typing error in someone's contact information. So as a hiring manager, you send them an email, you phone their number, it does not get through. Always check your contact information and make sure it's the most accurate and up to date. And if you're working internationally, make sure you put your international dialing codes or any details of contacting internationally on it. Also, your personal statement. I have checked out with lots of different people around the world that I speak to, and it does vary. So some personal statements can be 1 sentence. Some can be a paragraph of quite detailed information, but it's always relevant to the job that you're applying for. So really make different things sting out. So if it is a writing job, then make sure you put copywriting in that paragraph. If it is a filming with a camera, make sure you put I can film with a camera in that personal statement, just because those personal statements are really critical. And also, it's a good way of saying you can tailor it to every job and then put your achievements so far in there, or your ambition or your goal or your tech skills, as I've said. And also, if you are a driver, make sure you put that in there as well, just because driving is a really good skill to have if you're looking for work. Professional experience, always just put most recent first, experience both paid and unpaid that makes you the best candidate for that job. And really highlight the things that you've achieved or highlight the things that might have similar experience to the job that you're looking for. So if you've got lots of experience for particularly, let's say, you're a running work or production assistant work, I would bunch them together and put them together and maybe merge them, just because if your CV is 2 pages of just working as a runner, and that means location work, making cups of tea or coffee, looking after contributors, you can put that in 1 paragraph and then fill your CV up with other experience. So I would merge them together if you can, if you're tight on space. Put your key skills and qualifications and technical abilities, and also do the level of those abilities. So if you've got an international driving license, put that down. If you've got Microsoft Office or Adobe Premiere Pro, put what level you are. So you could say you are basic, intermediate, professional level, or you could put bronze, silver, gold. You could put a percentage. I've seen on some CVs from the Nordic countries, they put percentages of skill level at Excel or at Adobe Premiere Pro. Other people make it a bit more visual. Then also, with your achievements and awards, if you've got awards or achievements in your local countries or different awards that could be international or national, put the award down, but do make it clear what it was for. So if it was an award that you won at college or school or university, then make sure it's really clear about that. Just so then if someone has got a question in their mind about what that thing is, try and solve it for them in a very short sentence, just because then it's really clear for those. And then also put your academic history. And it was interesting because actually a lot of the people that I worked with and spoke about this said that actually you can include your university, college, school or training courses, but we just don't need to know everything. Just put the relevant ones down because that's really important. And then also with your achievements, if you are being mentored or you've been a mentor, put it up there as well. Just all those achievements and awards are really important. Digital links to your portfolio. So when I say portfolio, it could be a Vimeo link, it could be a link to a private YouTube channel, but always check those links as well, because it's amazing how many times as a hiring manager, you click on a link and it fails, or you need a password, or it's not an open link, or it's something that's inappropriate that you think, do they really want me to see this? So always kind of really do double check those links, and also check that they work internationally. Just because sometimes if it is geo-blocked, you don't want a geo-blocked link because then the person won't be able to see it. Put in any paid work or transferable skills are really big right now. So if you've got experience of working in a restaurant, catering, as a reception desk, just think of that as a really high pressured environment where you're dealing with people and money and members of the public. There's lots and different ways of really putting experience or work from other relevant industries. It doesn't necessarily just have to be the media or TV. And then also put shadowing or work experience. And if unpaid, really do put as much in there, because you are just looking at what the person's got behind them and what is really exciting or interesting about wanting them to hire them. Also, put languages. And when I mean languages, obviously it can be international spoken languages, but also if you use signing and you use, for instance, like British Sign Language or Makaton or whatever it is in your relevant territory or area, then do put that in as well, because I've hired people, particularly in some of my work when I was working on the show called Blue Peter, that could do sign language, because it's really important that we could sign to children coming into the show and for them to get an experience just like every other person coming to that show. So it's really important that people and that experience do let everyone know. Other things that might be useful and useful qualifications and skills are, as I said before, like driving internationally. If you've got an international first aid or any diving qualifications, such as like a PADI or anything that you could show that actually you've trained at something and you really want to demonstrate all your skills. Now, my friends in America, they said that the credits list, they often put key players on their teams. So it could be the exec producer, showrunner, executive in charge. You could put the company name down, you might do, because then it helps them with references. And they also said show personality and facts about yourself. And also they did say about languages and certifications as well. So that's really important. Some key things that they said don't do is put a photo on it unless you're being cast for something. So that means if you want to be in a show, that's when it's really important to do that. Graphics and a really stylized CV, you probably don't need unless you're going for a graphics job, just because it will just be black on white, simple paper would be really easy. And don't put too much space, and put more information on it. And there's no need for too much details about your school or university. And then my colleagues in Denmark did say, really remember the level of skill that you've got in it. And so if you're very experienced, and also if you volunteer for things, that's a really good thing to put on there. So all voluntary jobs, everything is really relevant. And then elements to really think about: is your CV or resume really easy to read? Like, is it easy to read? Give it to people and then ask them, tell me the top 5 things you've read that you would come back to me about, because that's really interesting to get somebody who doesn't really know you to say, like, read this and tell me what you think, and tell me the 5 things that you think I'm really skilled at. Is it design over detail? As I said earlier, if your CV or resume is really too detailed or too design heavy, then sometimes you just can't read it. And also think that if someone has got photosensitivity issues, and that's the hiring manager, they may not be able to read it. So if it's multicolored, they may not be able to see the colour. So really do think about that. With CVs in the European Union and in the UK and around the world, think of data protection and something called GDPR, which is the General Data Protection Regulations, which are across all of Europe, but also in some other countries have adopted them. So do always think, because you do need to put a statement there. And that statement normally just says, this CV can be kept on file and distributed for employment purposes. And you just put GDPR, data protection statement. But if you don't do that, then the hiring managers can't keep your CV, so you don't want that to happen. As I said, my colleagues in the States said don't include a photo or date of birth, because actually that could exclude you from some, if it's for fair recruitment and equal recruitment, if there's a photo or a date of birth, sometimes that excludes your CV from it. And also consider your audience and be sensitive to the country that you're applying for a job for, or you're sending it to, and really do your research about that country to make sure that not anything you're putting in your CV is always appropriate. And with references, so as I said, with sensitivity, it could be political, it could be religious, it could be inclusion, it could be diversity beliefs. Like any of that, do really think about. And then also your references. But I personally would never just put your references' names in there. Just say references can be available. Now, if you wanted to put references could be available from my previous employer at the BBC or Fremantle or whichever company you're working for, that could be fine, because then that gives a hint of what your references might be coming from. And I think that's a really good thing to think about. Cover letters or a cover email is in addition to your CV. And that's a chance to really sell yourself. So this is where, and if you're a good wordsmith and you love writing, you love creative writing, this is where your drive, your passion, your ambition, like why you want to work for that company, why you want to meet them, why you want to work on their content, what you'd bring to it, and like all that drive and creative ambition, that should be really in a cover letter, and it supersedes your CV, because I'd always read a cover letter or read a cover email first before then opening the CV, and then that would always lead me to the CV. And I would say a cover letter and introduction, not everyone does them, so it'll get you noticed more, and it really helps you to match you and them together. So you can say like, I'm Ewan, I really want to work for your company because I've watched this, and this. I love your content because it really demonstrated to me that you're an inclusive employer, and that I really want to work for a company like that, and that's why I want this opportunity, and that's why I've applied. And then that really shows your drive and energy in there. And with cover letters, I always say it's always really about why you. That's why you're the best person for the job, or why you're applying for that job. Why them, and why us. And with a cover letter or introduction, 200 to 500 words max is all you need. You don't need anything more than that, just because too much information it's just really good for you to sell your culture, share their culture, and then put in your communications and applications. And I think that's really, really important, just because I think it's a really good way of selling yourself. And then before sending, what's really important is save the file logically. So don't save it for it to work for you, but it needs to work for you as well. So I always say, so if I do a CV, I always put like Ewan Vinnicum Wallace CV, and I'd put July 2023, and that's it. And then if you're saving it for yourself on your many files, because you'll be updating your CVs and cover letters all the time, then put that was for the BBC job, like BBC Studios or ITV Studios or whichever company you're working for, then put it, just because then that means that then you know when you've saved it. Also, and this could be speaking very, very plainly, but check the links and make sure the file opens. And with files, I would always save them as PDFs, because if you save it in Word and someone else is opening it in a Mac, or someone else is opening it on their phone, or if someone else is opening it through another file sharing device, all the formatting changes. Whereas with a PDF, it never changes. So really do save it as a PDF. Check always the spelling and grammar, because if you say I've got a really good eye for detail and I'm meticulous at what whenever I send out any presentation, and you can't spell your name, or something else is spelled wrong, or the company's spelled wrong. Because what's interesting about Fremantle is Fremantle has only got one E. The number of people who put Fremantle and they don't check. So it's really important that you just check with the company what the company's name is and who that person individually is. Because the number of times also, my name is a long name. I know it's a very different name, but also it's easy to spell. If you're going to send me an email, you've already spelled it in the email, so spell it correctly, and then everything will be fine. And then also get friends and family to read it and feedback, and get them to be really honest. Don't just say, oh, you're wonderful, this is an amazing thing, because actually you really want their true feedback. And then also, I always say, give it 24 hours. If you are applying for a job and it's 2 minutes to go before the deadline, you won't give it your best. So always really plan your job applications and your CVs, and always give it 24 hours, because then you can double check your work, you can double check with your family and friends, and then you upload it, and then you get a really nice sense of satisfaction. On to my next part, which is all about using social media. And this is where really globally you can really connect with people and get your name out there. So I always say to the people, whenever I meet them, how would you say hello to a stranger? And it is really interesting when you say, like, how would you say hello to a stranger? Because most people go, oh, I'd introduce myself, and I would say hello, and I would say, my name's Ewan, and I'm really pleased to meet you, and how's your day going? Something like that, maybe. So you'd introduce them as if you're in front of them. It's amazing how many people on social media never really introduce yourselves. I'm going to move on and talk about LinkedIn, but the number of people that just ask to be connected with me, and they don't explain why, they don't introduce themselves, and I kind of wonder, why do they want to actually be connected with me? So then I spend time contacting them through LinkedIn, saying, hi, thanks for your connection. Is there anything you want to talk about? And when people go, no, nothing, then I'm like, why do you want this connection? And then you do step back and go, what is going on here? Because actually, if I was in a face-to-face environment, like in person, you'd introduce yourself. So just do it on LinkedIn, and it really does make a lot of difference. And the number of people that contact me on LinkedIn, then they introduce themselves, it proves a lot more of a fruitful relationship and a really good professional relationship instead of just someone asking kind of to be my contact. This is my LinkedIn, and this is by no means perfect. This is just an example of my one because I didn't want to use someone else's. But always try and include a professional headshot because this is almost like your virtual digital CV. And people go to LinkedIn. So as a hiring manager, I will always look at LinkedIn and see how do people come across. So include a professional headshot. Now you don't need to pay lots of money for it. Just get a friend or family or anyone that you work with to take a photo and try and make it a nice background and something that's interesting, just because it really is then a clear picture of you and nothing else, just you. Then an exciting banner picture. Some people may say mine's not exciting, but when I created my LinkedIn, when I went freelance, when I left the BBC, I put light bulbs in there just because I always used to come up with loads of ideas, and I'm an ideas person, and that's why I chose the light bulbs. Then always put like a role ambitions. There you go. You can see that I've got my name is project my name, and then project director of Fremantle. I'm an exec producer, but I'm also a production consultant. I'm a non-exec director, charity trustee, and brand management. So I've put loads of different things in there of what I do. And sometimes it's good to put your kind of aspiration there. So put some things that you're actually really doing and then a bit of aspiration. And then that really kind of sells yourself on LinkedIn. Also, follow companies that you'll really be interested in, because then when you follow them, you can get a really good feel of their culture and what that company is about and what they may be interested in or what you may be interested in. And then it gives you always something to talk about, so that when you do add people, you can introduce yourself and actually then say to people, I've seen this on LinkedIn, or I've seen your content here and I'm really interested in this. Could you tell me more about it? And then also feel free to kind of comment on it, just because when you do follow people, you then get to see their content. So there's a couple of photos there. One is me in Berlin with the Fremantle team. There's me with some people that I mentored and ran a course with at Channel 4, which is a UK-based TV channel. And then also you can see there's me at the BBC with a group of people that I mentored and got jobs at the BBC with. So you can see that already there's a few things. If you were contacted me through LinkedIn, you could see some stuff that I've posted and then have some stuff to talk about. And it's all about just that first sentence or two of instructions. Add professional content yourself about what you're doing and what you're up to, but then also repost other people's work or interests and then see kind of what they may want to do. So it's really interesting when you kind of repost other people. If you can repost or like, that's fine. What I do say is if you just like something, that's fine, but then it doesn't add to the conversation. Whereas actually, if you then comment on it and go, that sounds really interesting, I'd love to get involved, it could lead to something or an opportunity or a discussion, which you never know might lead to a job in time. And I've got jobs through commenting on things. And then someone says, oh, I'm interested in your experience on that. And it just gets you into different people's worlds. What I would say as well is do celebrate others as much as you, just because if you just take everything and never actually kind of reward others for brilliant work and things, then that's not a great thing to do. And that's not a really nice thing to do as a person. So really just celebrate each other's in a really genuine way. And then positivity always breeds positivity. And I always say that energy creates energy. And it's always the same with those kind of things. And always keep it professional and keep it in your professional life. And I'm someone who does have boundaries with my personal and professional life. And I always think it's really good to have that, just because it really does mean that then everything on LinkedIn, you're keeping it separate to any of your other thoughts about things. And then post regularly, but not too much. Because if you do too many posts, then people may get that's a bit of an overload. Whereas actually, if you said like once a week, I'm always going to do a post about LinkedIn and I'm going to do something about what I've been doing that week, then that's a really good thing to do. With Twitter, I look up people, or sometimes my teams will look up people if they've got a Twitter profile. I would say LinkedIn is more used as let's see what they're like on LinkedIn before Twitter. But Twitter is really interesting because I always think you should try and mirror as much as possible LinkedIn content on Twitter, because Twitter, you can then add a little bit more personality and you can always just bring a bit more of you into it. What I would always say is do check before retweeting anything. And I was always told when I worked in previous employment that if you retweet something, it's as if you're endorsing it and you're agreeing with that person. So just really be careful with what you like or what you retweet, because if you were going for a job and the company did say, we're going to go through your social media, you don't want an awkward conversation to come up. Always check your hashtags or when you do an ad and bring someone else into it, because the number of times it could be the incorrect at symbol, which is really disappointing, because then you're trying to be really brilliant at bringing other people into the conversation and bringing other topics into that conversation, but then you've added the wrong person. Then you may get a mistake. And as you can see, my full name is Ewan Wallace, but on Twitter I'm Ewan_Vinicum. So there's not a Ewan Wallace on Twitter unless you look at search for Ewan Vinicum. So again, it's those things to actually have a look at, and always try and encourage a call to action when you're doing Twitter, because then it involves a conversation, which then means that people then will talk. Now with Instagram and TikTok, I would say are brilliant creative tools, and they're brilliant for creativity and also visuals. And again, I would say, like, if you're in the visual medium and you're a creative person, then be creative on TikTok, be creative on Instagram, because then you've got stuff to show people at an interview. Or if someone then says to you, we'd love you to come and take some photos for our production, or take some video for our production, can you show us some stuff that you've done? If you've already filmed some stuff at TikTok or Instagram, then that's really good. And I know people who've got jobs, and really good jobs, out of a TikTok profile or out of an Instagram profile, just because it really demonstrates kind of what they can do for work. This is completely up to you. If you want to have like a TikTok and Instagram for your personal life and then your professional life, that's really good. And maybe do that, because then you're separating the two. If you blend the two, then if you're having a great time with your family, do you want all your employers or future employers to know that? Maybe not. Or your friends. And always just think of things like that. With Instagram and TikTok, I do think it's a lot more informal, and there's a really informal approach to it. So again, if you are using it and wanting to use it in a more professional environment, think professionally, don't just think too personally about it. So if it is private, keep it private. And if you're happy to share it, then do share it. But do always think of what you want to share, and that digital footprint for everyone. Like in my early years, we didn't have digital footprints. Now I do. So I'm always aware of kind of what I am posting and what I'm liking and retweeting or reposting. And as I said to you, professional account, to make it really clear that separation. And again, employers might really like to know that you've got a professional and a private account, because then that already shows you that you're thinking differently to other people that might be applying for that job. So with global working, I think be really clear, what do you mean by global working? So if you mean that you're happy to work or deliver either remotely, hybrid working, you can be on site, you're happy to include traveling to a new location, internationally, globally, within a territory. So it's just like in North America or South America or wherever you're working, be really clear, and the more you can be clear to people, the more they can then go, okay, that is an opportunity. If you say, I love global working, what does that really mean? That's quite confusing, because global working to me could mean anything. So really do be clear on what you mean by global working. Use your local advantage. So if your country or city is filmed a lot, then act like you could be a location assistant and say, I can help out, I can offer my services. Do you need someone to show you around? Do you need an expert? I'm really good at connecting people in my hometown of Manchester. So can I help you? Because I can introduce you to people and I know where the best hotels are. So it is really thinking of those things where you can help a production or help someone. And if you've already connected with them on LinkedIn and then on LinkedIn they're saying, oh, I'm filming in New York next week, any tips? Then get in there, give their traveling tips to them, and then that's really important, because then that gives you a conversation, which then might lead to work. And then also really do research the local to find the global. And I say this because many big companies, such as like Fremantle, ITV Studios, Banijay, they'll have local offices that could be closer to you than the Fremantle office, which the headquarters is based in London, but our CEO is based in Los Angeles. But we've got lots and lots of different companies, and they're all called different things. They're not just called Fremantle. So if you went on the Fremantle website or the ITV Studios website or the Banijay website, look at all the different labels, we call them, or companies that exist around the world, because there could be a company that you don't know is in your local area that actually is part of a global company, which then could give you that global opportunity. And then it's a great way of demonstrating your skills to them and your abilities to then see. So if someone contacted me, and let's say someone in Australia contacted the local Australian office, they may dazzle their skills in Australia, and then when an opportunity comes to then work in Fremantle that is based in India or based in Indonesia, then that could happen. You never know. So until you actually research all those companies, and that's a really good thing to think about. Use social media to gain those global connections. So as I said, if you think of LinkedIn and Twitter and social media, they can be your global kind of. Back in the day when I was younger, we had pen pals where you'd write a letter, you'd put a stamp on it, and you'd post it in the postbox, and it would eventually come back to you 2 months later. You've got the opportunity to use social media to gain those connections so much faster. And it's really important that you do that and really do think globally and connect with people. And also think of the professional industry bodies in those countries, just because in the UK, for instance, we have Screen Skills, we have BAFTA, which is the British Academy of Film and Television Arts, we have the Royal TV Society called Royal Television, RTS, we have things called Screen Manchester, Screen Yorkshire, Screen London. So we have loads and loads of talent bases which already exist, which then you can sign up to and to get more experience. Now, some of them may be geo-blocked to you or you can't apply for it, but that doesn't mean that you can't then look at their website to find out more about it and just see what other opportunities there could be in your local area. So I know there's lots and lots of encouragement for different film bodies across the world to get more people into the industry. So do have a look at all those for your experience. And then they may have partnerships with different countries, memberships around the world. So BAFTA may have connections with for instance, in Jamaica, or may have connections with India, or anywhere in Europe. You never know until you research. So as I said at the start of the session, it's all about research. I would say use your ScreenCraft Works mentor experience to its fullness. You've already got potentially so many different people in different industries working, different companies working across the globe who are either mentors, mentees, like Rebecca and Elizabeth. You've got loads of different people, loads of different resources to really think about and connect with. Like foster, nurture those relationships, give back to them just as much as they give to you, because you never know where that might take you. If you require visa sponsorship for a job, would you put that in a cover letter or someplace else? So I would always be as honest as possible. So I had someone contact me and they said, I've got a visa, this is what it means, and this is how it can be applied to in the UK. And so it was really, really clear what I needed to do to kind of go. And actually that person, I've then forwarded that CV to someone to go, this person can work in the UK, it's all checked out, and this is what they can do for the company. So I would say it's really important. You put it in the cover letter and then maybe put it in the CV as well. But if you do require sponsorship, then that obviously costs that company money. And it's not to say they won't do it, but it's good to be honest, because you don't want them to be so excited that you could come and then they find out, oh, you've not got a visa, or we need to do this sponsorship program, and then it won't happen. I was wondering whether you'd seen any great examples of CVs that stood out and what set them apart from others. I would say some of the best CVs have been really, really simple, like really simple, really clear. They've not oversold themselves in experience to what they've got of experience, but what they have really sold themselves on is passion, drive, and energy. And they've really done their research on the company that I was working with, so that then I really wanted to say, I'm excited to meet this person. I will give them a phone call straight away and I will set up a meeting. And so it really is important that you really think about how you can make your CV stand out and the passion and drive. And don't just say, I want to work for a global company. Say why you want to work for a global company. What could you bring to that global company, or whichever company you're applying for, because it applies to everything. So it really is a show of demonstrate your passion, and do really think about the way you can set yourself apart from others. How do you find out about local industry networks in a new country you go to work in if you have got a contract abroad? So I would say, first of all, if you've got a contract and you're making the move to abroad and stuff, every time you have a conversation with someone, ask them who would be really interesting for me to speak to about my next opportunity? Or can you tell me about local networks that exist in this country? Because, for instance, if you said that to me, I'd already be able to reel off loads of things and go, I'll sign up to this Facebook group, sign up to this LinkedIn group, sign up to this. They've got really good monthly session where you can actually go along and network and meet people. So I would always say, like, the more you talk to people, and if they don't contact you back, it could be they're just really busy. It could be that your email has dropped down in their priority list because they've had suddenly something else that's come in. So again, it's that chance to don't be put off by it. It's your chance to like re-engage with them, send them another email. Think of how do they communicate. If you see that they communicate a lot on LinkedIn, communicate, because that's the way they're talking to everyone. So it's really good to do that. And when you're starting to build local networks in a new country and it's that nervous time and you're in a country first off, just see what's on social media, because I think that's a really good thing. Or go to a local theatre, go to a cinema, go to different places to then work up those relationships. Because I didn't know, like when I first started in my global job, I didn't know anyone around the world in global terms. I had to introduce myself about 55 to 60 times to different people around the world each time. Then I had to listen to them or what they were saying and then building up those relationships. And it does take time. So I would say, like, working globally, it's for the long haul. It's not a short haul, easy thing to do. And also when you start in a new country and you're working in a new country, there's so many different cultural references. There's so many different ways of working. There's different things that different things are called. It's always good to be really open to finding out so much more about it. And that's why I think credit to all of you who've signed up to ScreenCraft Works for the mentorships and to get on this program, because actually you've already taken those steps forward and you're already trying new things. So it's really good to kind of speak to your mentors about that and then say to the mentors, oh, actually, I'm going to contact another mentor through ScreenCraft Works because actually they're based in this country and I want to hear more about this. So do you mind if I contact them? And everyone's going to be fine with that, I'm sure. So how long after job submission do you think is appropriate for a follow-up? Generally speaking, I would always do like a month to 6 weeks. Give someone a month to 6 weeks. I think that's really useful. And then passion, drive, and creativity are all great points. How can we stand out when we don't have many previous accomplishments or accolades in the industry? So again, I would say, Fabiola, that the way to stand out is to really ask your friends, family, people you've worked with in the past, or people in your college or university, I don't know, kind of your background, but ask them what makes me stand out. And then also say, what have I done in the past? So as I said to you, if you've worked in a restaurant or in a catering establishment, or you've served coffees, or you've volunteered for something, write down every skill that you did in that job, and then go, hey, actually, I can work in a high pressure environment and I can do these things because I've proved and I've done it. And what's really interesting is that those transferable skills, I've hired people that have worked. So one example, last year, someone who applied for a job had never actually worked in the industry, never really got a full CV at all. This person worked in catering. They used to cut up onions for about 12 hours a day. That was what they did all the time. And it was their sheer passion, drive, and energy. But also they said, I work where I'm cutting onions. So actually I work in a really high pressure environment because I've got a certain amount of onions that I need to cut every day, every hour, every minute. As soon as that person said that to me, I was like, that person's got drive and ambition, and they can stick to a deadline and really work hard. And I know this sounds a very bizarre example, but that person is now working in branded content for a global company and is responsible for their socials and doing really creative stuff with it. And that was 8 months ago they applied for that opportunity, and now they're working in it. So it just shows that actually you can achieve things by doing it and actually applying different skills and thinking of things differently. So I hope that, Favolia, works for your answer.
Thank you, Ewan. Thank you so much for a really, really helpful, informative, very practical talk that I think we can all learn from at all career stages. So that's been utterly brilliant. And I think we've all gained a lot from it. So huge thank you for your time and energy and presentation today from us all.